Welcome back, everybody. We are now on episode 5 of MKTV. Now, we are here with a very special guest. Now, you may know him either from Red Dead Redemption 2 or maybe a slot machine many years ago. But we are here with Roger Clark. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, man?
Doing well. I just want to say, I learnt the other day that jelly beans were actually invented in like 1861, I think. So
No way.
So Arthur having a fondness of jelly beans could be historically accurate.
Wow, I never even realized they were that old.
I
That's
know.
amazing.
So
I wonder, I would love to. He probably did have some jelly beans then at one
he
time or another.
he could be addicted to jelly beans. So I'm just saying
Yeah.
it could be. It could be real. Could be. Now
Yeah. And now that's in my head canon now. That's it. Arthur was always fond of jelly beans. He had loads in his satchel.
that is it.
I
That's
mean, he had everything else in his satchel. Why not throw in a few jelly beans as well? Have you ever had the Harry Potter ones where half are like really nice and then the other half are horrible?
oh, is that like bean?
Oh, it's like gambling, but with your taste buds. So half the packet's delicious, and then the other half, you've got these flavors like rotten eggs, or fish.
Oh yeah,
There's some of
and
them
it,
absolutely disgusting.
and it's got like that spin wheel, so you see what you land on. Oh
Yeah,
Jesus.
or you just go for it and you just go in and you take one out and then you just hope for the best, 50-50 chance. Some people like to live dangerously.
Wow. Yeah, no, I did that once with my family and that did not end well. Did not end well at all.
But what you get is someone always gets clever and then they start recognizing them by sight.
hmm
And so they always take the nice ones.
I was actually gonna have jelly beans set up right here for this interview and, and I also have a
Well,
prop.
I'm glad you didn't. I would have
I
been
have a
distracted
prop.
the whole way through.
I've got a prop to show you. Something pretty cool
What's that?
for ages.
Nice. That's the ultimate edition. Yeah, I got the same one.
Yeah, my little
That's cool,
prop.
man. You
My
get the
little
White
prop.
Arabian with that, don't you? And you get with the Ultimate Edition, I think there was a special horse that you'd get. I guess
I
the
think
White Arabian.
so.
Do you get the White Arabian if you?
Been a
That's a
while.
good question.
That
Yeah.
is a good. Fire. You should be the interviewer now, Roger.
Yeah.
you are.
I think the White Arabian is only available on the Ultimate Edition, but I could be wrong. I love the White Arabian, but it's so small. It makes
Think
Arthur
maybe.
look huge.
Do you reckon, right? If Arthur was alive today, what do you think his Spotify Wrapped would look like?
He did like music, didn't he, though? He did like to sing along every once in a while. Um, I don't know. If Arthur were alive today, would he? I don't even know if he'd be an outlaw. It all
Ooh.
depends on the upbringing and the influence that you have off your mentors and stuff. Uh, gosh, I have no idea. Maybe he'd be into electro dance rave. Maybe he'd be going to the electro clubs at night. I have no idea. He could easily just be big into gangster rap. I mean, I'm eclectic. I like almost everything. I've been getting into 70s a lot lately. I've been listening to a lot of 70s music.
There is a guy on TikTok that does your voice impression and he sings like new songs and it's so funny because it's like it's the Red Dead world, but he might be in like a car from this year singing a song and it's so weird and you see Dutch come by in a horse and it's like have you seen that
Good.
guy on TikTok?
I've seen a few. Some of them are pretty good. Yeah, some of them are awesome. It's better than AI, that's for sure. Because at least this way it takes a bit of talent. I can't believe the amount of people who have who this game has touched. It just still blows my mind. And there are some pretty good Arthur Morgan impressions out there. I
hmm
remember one guy who was also from Australia at the very beginning. He was just trying to pass himself off as me.
What?
He would put up a poster saying the voice of Arthur Morgan, and I had to get in touch with him and said, you're just doing an impression, mate. You're not. Stop saying you're me, because the next thing we know, you're going to be getting in trouble with the cops or what have you, and then I'll be getting phone calls. So just stick with the impressions.
We've got somebody in here saying Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the best games ever made. The views and landscapes is ridiculous.
It is
Wow.
pretty good, isn't it?
Have you seen the
Yeah.
news clip where someone sent a photo of Red Dead Redemption 2 into the news and they passed it as like a real life thing of the country that they were from? It was
Pretty
getting
impressive.
it was.
Yeah.
It was good. Now, one of the questions I did want to ask you, when it came to Red Dead Redemption 2, you worked on it for 5 years. Like, that's a long time. And I'd love to
Yeah.
know, like, what was the most challenging scene to perform, both either emotionally or physically, when it came to all the scenes that you did?
Well, I can tell you physically, it was a lot of we did all the in-game animations as well as the cutscenes, and it was mostly performance capture. So, and I'm learning now, all studios do it so differently. A lot of studios, they'll just get another actor to do all the in-game animations, but I know everything you see Arthur do is me 95%. Sometimes it was a stunt performer, and sometimes it was, if it's a side mission, and depending when you do it, it might be Rob Weedoff as well, because him and I would share the side missions. He would mocap one, and then I would ADR it like this, and then vice versa. But to answer your question, we did all the in-game stuff. So crouch running, crouch walking, crouch stealthing. Then you gotta do crouch running with one gun, then two guns, then a rifle, then a shotgun, then a Molotov cocktail or some indiscriminate thing that you're just holding in your hand. Then you gotta do all that again, walking again. Then you gotta do it all over again, slowly and like in stealth mode. And that, but we did like 2 or 3 days of just crouching. That was killed. That almost killed my thighs. It was a great workout though. That was insane. And one thing I was really nervous about for quite a few years. Spoilers, by the way. But yeah, I knew what Arthur's fate was going to be pretty early on, but I didn't know the exact details and specifics of it until about a week or two before we did it, because the writers didn't like to paint themselves into a corner. We had a basic outline of what the story was going to be, but we didn't. They didn't actually commit to an actual script until like a couple of weeks before, because they would like to see how the story was organically developing. But
Did you get to add your own interpretation to the character over those 5 years?
well, you can't help but do it, I think, and we were bouncing off of each other. They were looking at what the actors were bringing to the role and vice versa. And yeah, I think even if it wasn't intentional, I think the writers were definitely playing to the actors' strengths and mannerisms. I think you couldn't help but do that a little bit. And there was a bit of feedback as well. Rockstar were wonderful to work with, and if ever we had any questions or suggestions, I always knew that we would be listened to. Sometimes they'd say, "No, that's not a good idea," but sometimes they would, and I always appreciated that. But to go back to the other question, yeah, so Arthur's four deaths, four different deaths. There's the high and the low honor version of going to help John. And then there's the high and the low honor version of going back for the money. And the first one that I did was high honor helping John, which I believe most people prefer that one because it's the most peaceful ending he gets. So that was the first. I knew that this had been coming for years. I knew that Arthur was going to meet his demise towards the end of the game, but I didn't know the exact details until about a week or beforehand. And I was nervous. I wanted to give it the justice and that he deserved. And obviously, I knew what an impact. It's more spoilers, but I knew what an impact John Marston at the end of Red Dead Redemption meant to me. So I was just trying to remain loyal to that because I knew what all the Red Dead fans expected and hoped for, and I just didn't want to disappoint. Plus, Arthur's different. Arthur is a slow burn, his end. You see it coming from a mile away, and it just comes closer and closer, and there's nothing you can do about it. Whereas with John, if it's the first time you're playing that game, it's short and sudden, and you don't see it coming. So I really appreciated the way Rockstar did it two different ways, but at the same time, yeah, I was nervous. I was very nervous to do it the justice that I think it warranted.
I remember playing Red Dead for the first time, Red Dead Redemption 2, and I remember at the start, I remember saying to myself, man, these snow missions are taking way too long. What's going on here? And then at the end of the game, I'm going, this is the best game ever made. I love this game. And it's like, because the ending really gets you. Like, the ending does really get you. And one of the questions I did want to ask you, with you also doing so many takes and all that, were there any deleted scenes or different takes that you wish made it into the final game?
Oh, there's loads of stuff that didn't make the game, but at the end of the day, no, not really. You know, it's not my job to decide what gets kept and what doesn't. And like with any piece of art or media, you gotta be prepared to edit. You gotta be prepared to kill your babies for so that you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you gotta be prepared to serve the story in the best way that you think is possible. And sometimes that means cutting it down a bit. And yeah, there was some stuff cut, but no, I don't wish anything had remained in by any means. I'm quite the fact that people are still enjoying it now after 6 years on the scale that they are enjoying it is means so much to me. I think it'd be selfish to ask for more, you know?
I think there's a YouTuber or a streamer at the moment, iShowSpeed. He dressed up in a full cowboy outfit and he's currently
Oh yeah,
streaming.
I just saw that. Yeah, he just started a playthrough. Yeah, and
Yeah,
Sean just yeah. I
I know. I
hope
just
he enjoys it. I know. Is it Kai Sanat? Is that how you say his
yeah,
name?
yep.
He did one as well, and I know he screams the whole way through it. But yeah, I know he enjoyed it, and yeah, I hope I Show Speed enjoys it as well
Have you
because
seen
it's a
him?
big game.
He's got a paint on beard and everything, and he's got the cowboy
Yeah,
outfit. And he
yeah,
had a
that's
pistol and
brilliant.
everything. His outfit was great. But
Yeah,
with how long that Red Dead took to make, do you think there's any Easter eggs or little details about Arthur that people might have missed?
but wow, that's a good question. I think everything that is to be discovered has been discovered, but that doesn't mean, and I know studios have done this before. You know, every once in a while they'll update the servers and they might slip something in, see if somebody notices. Now I don't know if Rockstar would do that, but I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, people are still picking this up for the first time. So I have no idea to be honest. But I think everything that's to be discovered has been discovered. It's a bit like Mount Chiliad with GTA
Oh
5, you
yeah.
know. I some mysteries are best remained unsolved, but I get people asking me about the third meteor and about that princess, and all I can tell you is if you haven't found it by now, I don't fancy your chances. But never say never.
When it came to you preparing for the role, were there any movies that you used as inspiration for the character or any books that you might have read to help prepare for the role?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, loads of westerns, and I was playing GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption back and forth the whole time we were working on it, you know. I'm a big fan of westerns, and I've been watching them with my dad since I was a kid, and I appreciate them all even the early ones like High Noon, where the morality is very black and white. The good guys wear the white hats, and bad guys wear black hats, etc. And then that kind of evolved then into the spaghetti westerns and a bit more of a morally gray area and the anti-hero. And I love them all. But another big influence was, and it's no stranger to westerns too, because it inspired Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More, and The Magnificent Seven for that matter. There's some Japanese cinema directed by a fellow called Kurosawa, and he worked with an actor called Toshiro Mifune, and they did one about a wandering Ronin samurai who waltzes into a town where two competing families are trying to wipe each other out, and he plays them against each other, just like Fistful of Dollars. So yeah, Yojimbo's was a huge influence, and the sequel Sanjuro, which was For a Few Dollars More. I was devouring all that stuff. Um, but yeah, Red Dead Redemption was a huge influence. GTA 5, lots of Japanese films, lots of westerns, and and I would listen to a lot of music too that would help kind of, influence me. But once we were a couple of months into that job, I think the character of Arthur was pretty firmly established, you know.
Did Rockstar give you any materials to kind of read or watch when you got the role, or was it just all you when it came to the preparation of the role?
They did say they wanted a Western accent. I did ask them. I said, "Hey, you got any films?" And through the grapevine, I got word of an Australian film called The Proposition.
Hmm.
Uh, and I watched that. And in retrospect, now the relationship between I think it's Guy Pearce and Ray Winston. I think, but that very much goes hand in hand with the relationship between Arthur and Dutch, where the mentor, the cheese starts to slide off the cracker of the mentor, and the mentee has to start to really make some hard questions as to whether or not that this person deserves to be followed still. So the proposition, to answer your question, which is a Western. It's set in the outback, but like Ned Kelly, it is a Western. It's man, good and evil, trying to tame the untamable. It's very much a Western as far as the genre is concerned.
Speaking of movies, I just thought of this. If Red Dead Redemption 2 was made into a movie, who would you want to play yourself in the live action of Red Dead Redemption 2?
Danny DeVito.
What? Not what I was
Yeah.
expecting.
No, no. You see, here's the thing, right? And I don't think I would make a good Arthur Morgan anymore, but I just wish that we're starting to see a lot of video games being adapted into films. And I just don't I'd like to see the original cast be considered a little more often. Like the way you just asked that question now, there was no question in your mind that I could do it. It was like, who would you like to see? And well, quite frankly, I mean, if you had asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have said me. I've already done it. A lot of people think that Red Dead and video games is done in here, and some of them still are, but most of them are not done like that at all now. Most of them are like Avatar, or Lord of the Rings, or Marvel, and nobody thinks twice about the Avatar cast, being able to portray their characters. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it would make a. I think it's been done, and I don't think Rockstar are very interested in seeing an adaptation as well. They always the whole time I worked for them, they would always say, "We don't make movies, we make video games." And I don't think you could cram Red Dead 2 into 90 minutes
Yeah,
or
no.
2 hours. I think that would be pretty hard.
It'd have to be a TV show at least if it was made into
Yeah.
something.
And if
There
it was a TV show and whoever they do get to fill my boots, uh, you're friggin' welcome. That's what I'll say.
Yep.
But as far as who that is, I don't. I don't.
Speaking of video games, your first video game was technically a slot machine many years ago, and now you've done Red Dead Redemption 2, Fort Solis. I know you had a little bit of a role in Back for Blood, I think it's called as well. And I'd love to know, even though you are in probably one of the most iconic games, when it comes to Red Dead Redemption 2, are there any games or franchises that you'd like to be a part of?
There's some studios that I would love to work with. And at the top of that list, definitely Naughty Dog and Hideo Kojima. I don't care what franchise. I really don't. I would just love the opportunity to work with those studios because I love what they do and I think they make awesome games. So yeah, places like Bethesda as well. There's a lot of studios that are just killing it. Santa Monica would love to work for them too. Even if I mean, and the gaming too is one of the few games I should say is one of the few places left where we can have new IPs. Because in film now, everybody's too scared to make up a brand new film. It's got to be a sequel or a prequel or what have you. But in games, we're still seeing brand new intellectual properties being released, which is really exciting. So I would love to work for Naughty Dog. It's at the top of my list. Yeah,
Do you think you'd ever
and
do a
it
horror
doesn't.
game?
Sure, I'll do whatever, man. I hardly ever say no to anything.
Have you heard of the company? They make a game called The Dark Pictures, and it might be like The Dark Pictures, House of Ashes, or Man of Medan. Have you heard of that franchise before?
No,
They
no, I
make
haven't.
these narrative like horror games where you get to pick your own story. So
Oh,
the ending, if you make a decision at the start, it can actually affect the ending.
cool. I love
And
that. We're seeing more of that, aren't we?
I feel like you'd be great in one of those games, being one of the
It
characters.
it empowers the player, doesn't it? When you actually have a direct influence on how the story folds out. I love that. It helps with the immersion. All right, cool. I must remember that. Yeah, horror games are awesome. The jump scares still get me.
Are you much
I
of a
watch my
gamer
kid.
yourself? Well, sorry for
I
cutting you off
I
there.
I do. No, you're fine. I do still play. Yeah, I just finished Indiana Jones. I loved it.
Oh,
That
I've been
cool.
seeing.
Yeah, yeah. Have you played it yet? Have you?
No, I have been seeing it all over TikTok. Everyone's talking about how it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought Troy Baker did an awesome job. I plowed through it over the Christmas. Yeah. And you feel like you're Indiana Jones. The first time I got that whip out, oh my gosh, I was giggling like a little schoolgirl. But yeah, the jump scare horror in gaming is so cool because the jump scares are it's almost built for jump scares. It's amazing when the player has control of the camera and you do a 180 and they're right there. I I watched my kids play Dark Deceptions, and it's still, even if it's just Five Nights at Freddy's or something, and you turn around and that thing's right there, it jumps. It makes me jump out of my pants.
I think that
Gaming
happened.
is perfect for horror.
I think it happened to me once playing Resident Evil. I just got out of this boss fight, and I thought that was it. I was over, and I'm walking, and I hear something behind me, and I turn around. Here he is, right behind me. And next minute, bang,
Ah,
dude, that scared the crap out of me.
it was remember that one Resident Evil where the dude just walks really slowly, but he never stops following you and stops. That fella, you remember him?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I remember the first Resident Evil 2. I was playing that in college, and there was just a silly bit where you're just walking along a corridor, but these arms just jump out from behind these nailed up planks of wood, and I shat myself. It's like 3 a.m. in the morning, and you're in a dorm room somewhere. It's so much fun.
I kind of relate to that because I don't know what Resident Evil it was, but there was one. I think it might have been a remaster where you're in this jail cell and you're talking to this guy, and next minute the guy breaks the wall in the jail cell and grabs the guy, but it scares the crap out of you because it happened so fast. And I was playing
Yeah.
it at like 4 in the morning, and I remember I got a text from my brother, and he goes, "Shut up," and that's all it was. Just oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gotten a few of those myself. Be quiet. Yeah. This was before headphones. But even with the headphones, you're still
It's
screaming,
still
right?
screaming, yep. Actually, when it comes to you, you know, being in Red Dead for so long, coming back to that, there are so many lines where you're screaming or you're yelling. How did you maintain vocal health through those 5 years?
Well, most of the screaming and whatnot would have been in the booth because, most of it was performance capture, but quite a bit of it was in the booth. And most of the screamy stuff was in the booth. And you'd save those bits for the end of the session. Typically a session would be about 4 hours, and all the screamy bits you'd do it at the end, so that if you really blow your vocal cords, you give yourself a couple of days to relax, have some hot water, honey and lemon, and a few vocal exercises beforehand. Just simple humming will do. I just hum on the subway on the way there just to warm up. But yeah, you'd save all the crazy stuff for the end. And in gaming, there's always crazy stuff, because you're getting shot and you're attacking. And with Red Dead 2, there's all this other ones. You're puking because you're drunk. That was pretty hard. That was harder than I expected, actually, the puking. Being on fire was one of the hardest because that's legitimate screaming at the top of your lungs, like you're literally burning to death. So that had to be out way. I had to knock that out of the park.
That
Falling, falling for some people fall for 20, 30 seconds. Obviously that's looped, but I would maybe, we'd give them like 10 or 15 seconds of just continually falling. That was a bit of a challenge. And of course, coughing too.
yeah.
Coughing really took its toll. But uh, I was on that project for 5 years. So thankfully, with that length of time, you're offered a lot of freedom and luxury in a lot of ways. So anytime I just had a bit of a cold, we would, get me in the booth and get it as authentic sounding as it possibly could be. And I did a bit of research as well. There really wasn't much audio. There isn't a lot of audio of people suffering from tuberculosis because a cure had been found by the time they came up with these microphones. But I was able to find some. There was an epidemic in India in the 40s, I believe. And I was able to catch a little bit of audio, but it's what you'd expect it would be, someone who sounds very ill.
Kind of crazy that when you think about how difficult it is to try and do the being on fire and falling. That was actually my next question. You already answered that for me, but it's like you haven't experienced being burning alive, so it's kind of hard to just reenact what that
Yeah,
is.
it's
Reenact what
true.
that is.
But thankfully, most of your audience hasn't experienced it either.
Yes.
And my heart goes out to the ones that have. And to
Oh,
them, I say, I hope it sounded good.
yeah, just the one person who has experienced it going, that don't
That's
sound
not what
right.
it sounds like at all.
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you probably don't say anything. You're probably not making any sounds. But yeah, yeah. We always, I think immersion and authenticity is a really important part of sandbox gaming, at least, because you want to feel like you're in the world. So authenticity and that helps with that immersion. But yeah, so far I've heard no complaints. Yeah.
I feel like with the story, the story of Red Dead, everyone enjoyed it, everyone loved it, but I feel like, what do you think Arthur would have been like if he didn't, hang out with Dutch for 20 years of his life? If Dutch wasn't there, do you think he'd be any different to how he is now, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dutch and Hosea were his parents in many ways up until when he met them. He's an adolescent. He's like 12, 13 years old, I think. So they're hugely, hugely responsible for the man that he became. So had it not been for Dutch and Hosea too, I think they were both equally, they both were parental figures in his life. Yeah, I'm sure he would have been a significantly different person. Absolutely.
Where do you think he'd be hanging out in the world if he wasn't with Dutch?
He would have been disadvantaged regardless because his mom died and his dad was an outlaw. So he probably would have still had some trouble with the law. Or, he might have just ended up get shot or end up in the army, um, or end up being an outlaw, perhaps with a different gang. Maybe someone like the O'Driscolls who perhaps weren't as idealistic as Dutch was. We were just in it for the money, because we often say Dutch is an antagonist, and in Red Dead 2 he is, but let's not forget, him and Colin O'Driscoll are two completely different outlaws. Dutch actually believes in the Robin Hood ideology. He wants to create a better society, a better place to live. Whereas most of the rest of them just want money. So, yeah, without that, even we see Dutch decline, but at the beginning of Red Dead 2, he cares about his people. You see this. He's a good leader, and he's concerned about everyone's safety. And we see a lot of other people aren't like that at all. So Dutch is definitely a good leader and a worthy father figure at the beginning of the game, and seeing that decline is very interesting. But yeah, it's like Arthur, I think, could have had a worse parental figure. Dutch was a good enough influence on him that when Dutch started to change, Arthur could see it and recognize it. I don't know.
I remember at the start, um, he was saying, "Oh, if you get any money, you put it in the box." I was like, "Okay, yeah. So if I get any money, I'll put it in the box." And then I found $600 in a mission. He took half of that for the camp share, and then another bit. And I'm like, I thought I had the choice to put the money in the camp share. I was excited. I had 600
Oh
bucks.
yeah, you get the choice too. You get yeah, they take it, and you get the choice to put in more.
Yes.
Very so.
What a ripoff!
It's not
Absolute
it's
ripoff.
not capitalism at all, is it?
You,
Oh, go to
you,
Tahiti and form up a socialist farm, farming mangoes.
you kind of answered this before, but with Arthur and his ending, how did you try and gradually change the way that Arthur spoke and the way he acted from when he got it to the ending? Because you were kind of answering it before, but I'd love to know how you gradually did it. Getting worse and worse to the ending.
Well, I it was a little tricky because it wasn't. So I would ask, where in the game does this take place? And if it was a story mission, I would often get a very straightforward answer. And I'd be like, all right, cool. So can you play me something that we've done like just before? And then they would, and then I would just make it slightly worse than that, you know? So that was pretty straightforward. But then there's lots of other parts in the game where you don't know when it is. It could be a side mission. It could be just an in-game animation that could happen at any time. And in that case, you err on the side of caution. You know, you don't want to sound too sick because then it wouldn't quite gel with the player's story. So in those instances, sometimes you just wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't cough, you know. But if we could guarantee where in the narrative this scene was taking place, then we would have a sliding scale of exactly on a scale of 1 to 10 how sick do we think Arthur is here, and then I would show some indication of that.
Did you have a favorite side mission or optional choice in Red Dead Redemption 2?
I really like the pig farmers, the incestuous pig farmers. They're a hoot. They made me laugh a lot. That was a good one.
Speaking of funny moments, I'd love to know what was the funniest interaction you had with the cast when doing a motion capture scene together?
There were a few.
Because isn't there
I
one
remember
that
there's
you mentioned one, I think, where it's the hotel, and if you barge in the wrong door, there's a guy on a throne, I think, or something like that. And I know you said that was pretty funny from memory.
yeah, he's trying to take a dump. Yeah. And if you go into the wrong room and you keep going in and interrupting him, is some pretty funny dialogue that we had to do a few times because I couldn't stop laughing. But with the actual gang, there was a bit when Milton has them all surrounded uh, at the bank job in Saint Denis, um, where spoilers, where Hosea meets his untimely end. You know, the Milton was shouting. There, he was shouting from across the street, but in the studio, you know, it was really only maybe 10 or 15 feet. And I remember the director kept telling him you got to shout louder. And he's like, why? They can hear me. He says, yeah, well, they're actually 60, 70 feet away. And you could tell that blew the actor's mind because there's the ins and outs of motion capture. You know, it has lots of different challenges. But anyway, he kept calling Dutch Butch. and that made me laugh because I could see the wonderful actor Benjamin Byron Davis who plays Dutch. You know, he'd be looking at the director saying, "Are we cutting? Or okay, he's gonna call me Butch. Okay, fine. I guess we'll do the scene again, but okay, we'll go to the end just for practice's sake." And yeah, God bless Rob was at the same time he said some line. I forget what the original line was, but he was something about we shouldn't have trusted Dante, Dutch. But then Rob called him Butch because the other guy had been doing it all morning. We shouldn't have had breakfast at Dante's, Butch. So lots of funny ones.
Someone just said, "Is this real? Are we real?
No,
We're
no,
not
this
real."
is all
Nah. Yeah,
no, this is all a simulation. This is
yeah,
the Matrix Part 4. Yeah.
not
Oh
really.
no, 5, Part 5
Part
now. Yeah.
5. That's right.
Yeah.
Moving
I
on.
really hated the last Matrix, didn't you?
I didn't watch
Uh,
it.
I I couldn't finish it.
To be
You
fair,
know, the first Matrix was amazing, and the second one was good, and the third one was okay. The first one was crazy good, but that last one, oh my gosh.
I haven't
Yeah, I
watched
couldn't get
any of
into it
them.
at all.
That's bad to admit. I haven't watched any of them.
Oh, I recommend the first one. The first one's amazing.
I will give it a crack. I'm pretty sure it was filmed in Sydney, actually, or it was filmed.
Oh,
I think so.
there's there definitely is a lot of Australian actors in it. Like I remember growing up in Ireland, you know, watching Home and Away. And then I'd be like, holy cow, that's so and so from Home and Away. And all the Americans are like, who? And like, oh, you have no idea.
I'm impressed you know Home and Away.
Sure. Well, it was every day on the TV. How could I not? I remember I remember Home and Away really well. Alf, is he dead now? Is Alf still
I
around?
don't know. I really don't know.
Uh, and Neighbours too, obviously. I remember Kylie Minogue and I remember Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan on Neighbours.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't. I feel like every Aussie, if you become an actor in this country, it's either Neighbours or Home and Away. You make that cross, and that's either one that you go in.
Right. Yeah, like in the UK, it's The Bill
The
or
bill.
Casualty. And then in America, it depends which city you're in. But if you're a New York actor, you've got to do one of the Law and Orders. You just have to.
Yeah, actually, every actor I see in like the US, I swear they've been in Law and Order, one episode or two.
Almost everyone, except for one. Me. I never got into Law and Order. I auditioned for them for about a decade, and I never booked anything. But yeah,
Wow.
everyone's in Law and Order. Everyone except me. I'm special.
Someone asked, "Have you been to New Zealand?"
I have not.
He's not been to New
No.
Zealand.
Been to Australia, never New Zealand. Yeah.
Where'd you
I'd
visit
love
in
to
Australia
go.
again? Sorry.
We did a show in Brisbane.
That's right.
We
Yeah.
did a show in a theater called the Powerhouse. We did the Scottish play there. And then and that was the end of that particular tour. So on my once we finished, I had time off. So then I hopped in a car with this dude and we went way inland past Toowoomba to like the beginning of the outback. And I just remember how beautiful it was. And it was the best night sky I had ever seen on land because there was no smoke pollution, no light pollution, nothing. It was just stars. I'd
Yeah.
never seen that on land. I've seen it out in the ocean, but never on land before. And then I went to Adelaide for a hot minute too.
Someone wants to know if you own an Arthur cosplay outfit.
No, no.
Dad.
I've been thinking about it, but no, I don't know. I've got my boots from the performance capture.
Ooh. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm gonna admit something here. I actually bought Arthur's hat. I was gonna wear it for this interview. It did not arrive in time, and I'm really sad. But I was gonna be really funny and have it on when you joined. And it's just, oh, that would
I've
have been
seen a
cool.
lot of ads. I've seen a lot of ads for that. It's very popular. Yeah. Yeah, typical.
Moving on.
That happened that's the way it is now with Christmas and stuff. I ordered something end of November. It still didn't show up for Christmas. It's getting worse and worse. Every Christmas, people just open up a Christmas card with a piece of paper in it saying, "I owe you one t-shirt that Amazon still hasn't delivered yet." Yeah.
Australia's even worse with shipping. I swear. If you
I
order,
bet it must be. Yeah.
if I once bought something right on eBay, and it was only actually being shipped an hour away, but it shipped
Ah,
10 hours away from me, but then
of
back to
course.
where it came, and then it went 2 hours past where my house was. But
Typical.
moving on from that, I'd love to know. You have mentioned that you make a really good shepherd's pie. I'd love to know what other dishes you like making.
Oh, well, I live in America now and I've been in the States for a while. I like grilling. I like barbecue. I started smoking stuff, like smoking ribs and brisket and stuff. I enjoy that. Brisket's hard because the no two cuts of meat are quite the same. You know, it's no rhyme or reason to it. One time it'll take you 13 hours one time and then 15 the next, and you don't know why. But I've learned that you gotta go by internal temperature. You can't go by time. You gotta go by internal temperature because I know the Australians are pretty good at grilling and barbecue as well.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
a lot of places like to do the like American style barbecue and then charge American prices for it here, and it's
oh dear.
yeah.
Oh boy.
I think I went. There was one place I went out to recently, and they had this like barbecue plate, and it had like your brisket and all that, and it was like $120 for this small little plate. And
What?
I know, like, and we're not even talking like fancy location or nothing. We're just talking normal restaurant, you know.
That's crazy. That's nuts.
So I know you go to a few gaming conventions and gaming events every now and then, and I'd love to know what was the most memorable fan interaction you've ever had.
Oh gosh, that's really tough. Because I've had so many. The ones that mean the most to me. One thing I never really truly anticipated is like families would come up to me and say that this game brought us all closer together. And, you know, John never got on with his grandfather, but once they had a common love of Westerns and that really brought them together. And now his grandfather's passed on, you know, and we're just really grateful for the time that they spent together over Red Dead. And that to me is the biggest honor of all. And it sometimes gets my eyes a little wet, you know? Uh, my dad just used to scream at me to get off the thing. So the fact that now families are sitting over the console and watching games, like it just means the world.
A lot of dust in
Uh,
the room that day, you know. A lot of
of
dust.
course,
Yep,
Yeah.
a lot of dust. When you won the Best Performance Award a couple years ago, I wanted to know, I know it's been a while, but I'd love to know what your thoughts were when you were just sitting down and then you hear your name get called and then everyone's cheering and you're walking up to stage, because that's pretty exciting, and that was pretty like nerve-wracking as well, being on a stage in front of so many people.
Yeah, I didn't expect to win because it was such a strong year and there was so many other great nominees. And most of them were better known than me, you know. And plus, Red Dead, I believe at the time had only been out like 2 months or something like that. And God of War, for example, and most of the other games, they'd been out for the majority of that year. But I just remember sat next to my wife. We flew out to LA, and it was a little nerve-wracking, but very exciting at the same time. And I remember, like, before the category was announced, someone just came over and went, oh, okay, you're there. Okay, good. Don't go to the bathroom. And I turned to my wife and said, what's that all about? She's like, I don't know. I says, I guess they just want me to be here in case so they can put a camera on me when they say my name. And she's like, yeah, that's probably it. So, yeah, I watched that, and then Christoph Waltz comes up along with his co-star, um, and I win, and from then on, it's just kind of a blur, you know? It's just a blur. But
Still pretty
it was
still pretty
a
cool.
huge honor. I think, I don't it's hard to be objective with art, you know? It's hard to say, "Oh, this was the best thing this year in this." It's hard to say that, and there's loads of people who always disagree and whatnot, which is why I think, just to be nominated is really cool. Because, people that they often will argue with who won, but with the nominations, you'd be like, yeah, that's fair enough, you know? And I love it for the fact that it recognizes artists' work, you know? And I think a nomination does that just as well as a win. But yeah, it was a blur. And then I remember going backstage, and they took the trophy out of my hands, and they says, you'll get it later. But that I don't know about what it is this in more recent years, but that year it was the same trophy. They just kept taking it back and giving it again and taking it. It was the same exact trophy the whole night.
A question I did wanted to ask, you know, what do you like to do outside of work? Like, what interests and hobbies do you have?
Oh well, I read, I go walking, I I'm basic I look at I'm a family man, and I got two boys, and I drive them everywhere. They go to band practice and all that stuff. So I enjoy spending time with my family. And but I most of the time I am working. And when I'm not, I'm spending time with the family. Yeah.
Speaking of family, I wanted to ask this, as someone who has autism, and I know that your son also has autism as well. I'd love to know if you had any advice for parents out there who may also have a child, with autism, and I'd love to know your thoughts on everything.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one because, no, as you know, no two people with autism are the same, it's such
Mm-mm.
a crazy spectrum. And
No.
but one thing I mean realize and understand that the world is viewed through a different lens, and try to understand that lens as best as you can, because that's how you're going to best serve and help your loved one. And I just always I try to encourage whenever is possible, and I try to remind them to celebrate what makes them different, as opposed to ever feeling self-conscious about it or anything like that. Nobody should ever make you feel bad or ashamed just because you're slightly different from everyone else. Everyone's different from everyone else, and I think that those differences should be celebrated, and nobody should ever be made feel bad about them. Because people with autism, they have to bend backwards a lot. They have to be flexible, and they have to really change their behaviors so much so that they fit in, to this world. And I think normal people, neurotypical people, uh, they need to be reminded of that a little bit more often. Oh, the work that people on the spectrum put in, you know? And I
The,
think people need to be a bit more understanding of that, I think.
I think the term is masking, where you
Yeah,
mask to be kind of normal around everyone else, and then when you get home, you kind of just let loose.
stim out.
Yeah, it's literally,
Yeah.
yep.
You stim out. My son still does that. He comes home and he stims, and it's like, whoo! It's like taking your shoes off, you know. And I'm proud that we've been able to create an environment for him where he's comfortable enough to do that, and we always will, and a safe space for anyone who just, you should always be able to be yourself. And yeah, that's part of growing up when you're on the spectrum is yeah, you have to become more and more adept at masking, and it's such a skill, and most people don't even realize how much of a skill it is. Yeah, but gosh, I can see the relief. It's and the relaxation when my son gets home after a long day. He's like, it's very relaxing. You
It
don't
it
you don't have to be so self-conscious anymore.
it kind of relates to what I'm doing now. Instead of doing interviews in person, I fully transitioned to online interviews. Now I get to chill in my own studio in my own little room, and don't have to worry
Sure,
about anything else. Just interviewing great people.
that's cool, man. That's cool.
Someone wants to know if you had to ride a horse for motion capture for Red Dead Redemption 2.
I actually didn't. And I am not a bad rider, you know? But I did not do any horse riding for Red Dead 2. They got all those horse animations done in about 2 or 3 weeks, and they used the horse wranglers. None of the actors were used. We used barrels with sticks and saddles on them. And in a way, I'm glad. I could have done it, but I wouldn't have done it as well as the horse's own owner, you know? It's like some of the stuff that you see in that game, like the how the horses turns 180 and in the space of a couple of strides. It's very impressive stuff. Would have taken me a lot more tries to get that than I'm sure the horse wrangler did. So it was wise to do it the way that they did and to get the horses in and out in as quick and timely a manner as possible. I'm glad I didn't have to deal with the manure.
I was just laughing because there was a clip on TikTok where you had to redo your horse lines for Red Dead Redemption 2. And I'm just
Yeah.
laughing because you were saying when you were on the table with everyone and you
Yeah.
know
Sounds like you're not talking to a horse. It still doesn't. I mean, it still is misinterpreted. Yeah, the joys of voice acting. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for that.
My
Sorry
pleasure, man.
sorry if you've been asked those questions before, but
No, it's all
but
good.
I just want to
There's not much I haven't been asked now.
yeah,
You know, I guess I better come up with a different video game now,
you
huh?
got to just do another Red Dead or something, you're just going to
Oh, well, yeah, I could. Yeah, let's do another Red Dead. Yeah, I think they're busy right now
So
with the
there's
little game.